Why do you want to be perfect? What is this need to constantly prove yourself over and over and over? This is Dr. Spencer Coaches. Today, I'm going to talk to you about why you need to be perfect, why this constant drive in you to constantly improve and impress people, and why you're so critical of yourself and people around you if they're not perfect, in this constant quest for perfection. It comes from the need for approval. See, if you need to be approved of, it's because you think you need to be approved to belong. The essence of the desire to be perfect comes from the desire to belong. If you're perfect, if you're really good at something, you do something really well, then you'll be admired. People will like you and people will include you. And this is why this happens. I'm going to share with you a story about growing up skateboarding. I realized this in junior heights. I'm 12 years old. I bring my skateboard to school. I have this Rob Roscop Santa Cruz skateboard. The grip tape is cut out with this lightning painted yellow. And people looked at me, what the hell is that? What is this kid can do? A few of the students asked me, can you ask to drop off of this ledge? It was a 4-foot ledge. I had never done that before. And it was that moment where I realized I have to perform. Otherwise, I'm going to be laughed at. Everyone's going to think this is ridiculous. So I got up on the ledge. I stood up there contemplating what it is I needed to do to succeed, to make it happen. I began to visualize exactly what I need to do, the movements, the pressure in my back foot, which way to lean, how far to lean. I held that vision in my head. I got up on my skateboard, I pushed, made sure I had the right amount of speed, just like I visualized in my mind, and went off the ledge, and I landed. And everybody cheered. People were really impressed, and it was that moment I realized that the higher I perform, the more admired I will be, and the more people will like me. And then I'll feel like I belong. I did that throughout grade school. My parents wanted me to get good grades. They seemed to show more affection, more attention, more love, the higher the grades I got, the more consistently high grades I got. With skateboarding, that continued. The more tricks I landed, the more people wanted to hang out with me. And then I feel like I belonged. Now, I'm saying this because I have trauma, CPTSD from 4 and 5 when I was tortured. It really messed with my head. When I went to ask for help from people, my parents didn't believe me until they talked to one of my teachers and realized he was telling the truth. But by then I had already made up my mind. I can't trust my parents, these teachers, nobody. I'm on my own. And I have to prove myself over and over and over to get the love, nurturance, and support that I want. The need for approval. The opposite of rejection. The opposite of reprimand. To avoid being reprimanded, I tried my hardest to do the best that I can, to perform well, so I could impress people. So I'm speaking from experience, this need for approval, this need to belong, this need for significance. That's what it really boils down to, which is really a sense of confidence. Because if I'm looking for approval from other people, it's because I don't know how to give it to myself or even acknowledge it within myself. And I realized over time that my self-worth, what is important to me, wasn't really nurtured growing up. So I did it later on in years. I have done some soul searching, let's just put it that way, and have found myself. And it wasn't easy because I fooled myself into thinking that the higher performance, the more I achieved, the more I accomplished, then the more people will include me into their circle. The more people will want to have me around. And this constant desire to impress people, to win over their approval, this need for significance that I carried myself with, and the willingness to prove it to people, drove me to accomplish many things. Won a 5-year scholarship, got my doctorate degree, performed well in snowboarding and in sports, but it's all meaningless. It's all meaningless until I found my true self-worth and what I can truly trust within myself. The happiness, the knowing how to cultivate happiness within me. The knowingness how to cultivate joy. The knowingness how to create authentic connection with others. Because my desire to prove myself became so strong that I would have to be right all the time. I'd have to dominate conversations just to feel a sense of significance, that it pushed people away. And underneath it, I was just being scared and confused. Because of the trauma, I wasn't reading social cues. I wasn't responding effectively to people. I had very little emotional intelligence or empathy. And it pushed people away, and which caused me to want to prove myself more and more and more, because that was the only way I can get people to accept me. And when you're going to find this out, when you get older, nobody cares about how good you are. Nobody cares about what you can do, how good of a grade, how much money you have. It doesn't matter. What matters is your integrity. And that's what I found out. With people, is what's more important in connecting with people is my integrity, my trustworthiness, my reliability, my empathy, the respect I create for others, the appreciation that I can express, the favors that I can do, and express the value of that creates genuine connection. In fact, with my father, the people who really challenged me in life, I had that conversation with him. I said, Dad, my whole life I've been talking back to you. I haven't listened to you, and I've been a real problem for you, in a sense, really challenging. I always opposed you and never really showed you respect or listened to what you had to say, even though you have really wise things to say. He said to me, Spencer, you don't know how long I've been waiting for you to hear that, to say that. Thank you. And I said, Dad, I'm sorry, because my mother passed away in 2017, and not my father, nor my brother, nor my friends called me to see how I'm doing. And it really made me wonder. And I realized that I pushed everybody away through my behavior and by the way I talk to people. Because my constant desire to prove myself drove people away. Being that my father and my brother were the two most important people in my life, or are the most important people, I wanted to create a connection with my father, and I did through that conversation, simply by being authentic, by being transparent. And now we have a very wonderful relationship. I got to know my father in these last few years more than I have in my entire life, and created a connection with him because it allowed him to open up to what he really thinks and feels, which he'd never done before. And he only did it because I did it and invited him to do it. So I have a much more fulfilling relationship with my father. So I don't feel like I need to be perfect with him all the time. Our relationship with our parents growing up, especially during developmental years, shapes how we relate to people around us for the rest of our life. the values we inherit, the dynamics of the relationship can create a sense of trust, distrust. It creates this sense of approval, disapproval, what is worthy of being loved, what is worthy of getting attention for, what is worthy of receiving love and nurturance and protection, is all based upon how we relate to our parents and how our parents relate to us during developmental years. And we do it unconsciously. So a lot of this need for approval comes from wanting to prove ourselves to our parents. And going through school is very competitive, at least when I grew up, which could also create a desire to be perfect, to get A's, to do well in a sports team so you can get a scholarship, to perform well, to be perfect. This desire for perfection really comes from high performance and being or having the desire to be really good at something, to perform well, to play it perfectly, to win the game, to succeed, to get on the honor roll, to get into a great college, to get that great job that you want that pays you well and there's room for advancement, to get the perfect woman, or for a woman getting the perfect guy. This idea of perfection comes from the belief that you're not good enough. When you feel like you're not good enough, you feel like you're not worthy. Now, you're either going to use that to drive you to perform, or you can give in and say, well, I'm never going to be good enough, and quit before you even start. But for those who are driven, who have that courage to work, to perform, it'll drive you mad. At least it did for me. And it took me a long time to realize that it doesn't matter if I'm perfect or not. Because we are not what we do. We are not how well we do it. Who we are as human beings is a state of clarity and peace and joy and happiness and love. That's who we are. It doesn't matter how well we perform, how much money we make, what kind of a car we drive and job we have, and how big a house you got. This constant need for perfectionism comes from a deep sense of insecurity. It comes for a desire to belong because of the social conditioning tended to show more appreciation, attention, love, and admiration when you performed well. If you go back into your grade school years, into that mind, getting good grades, your teachers gave you more praise. If you played sports, the more or higher you performed, the more praise you got from the coach and your teammates. We are conditioned in this competitive world to perform well, to feel loved, from a deep sense of insecurity and unworthiness. And it creates a real neurotic way of being. It's a real neurosis to strive after this idea of perfection that doesn't exist. Now, in some regards, it can help you. It can help you do well because, yes, there is a reality of doing really well, performing well to get promoted, to find the wife or husband that you want, the ability to support yourself and own a home that you want, to own the car that you want. It takes a certain amount of work, discipline, and skill. And the better you are at it, you can earn more. So that is a reality. Nobody wants a dope on their team. Nobody wants a dope as part of a work partner. Nobody wants somebody who has low performance, isn't very skilled, to be on their side to help them out. You qualify. When you look for a job, they look for your qualifications. So there is a reality of having to do something well and going above and beyond what you're asked of, and to show real initiative. And that's a part of leadership. You take it upon yourself. But when it becomes an ego trip, when it becomes a sense of pride, when it becomes a sense of covering up this unworthiness. A sense of narcissism can develop. And it becomes really egotistical to be perfect, because you make yourself better than other people and you play a superiority trip, which really comes from an inferiority complex. It comes from insecurity. Because when you're good at something, you don't have to prove it to anybody. You know you're good. You know the value of being good. You know that the harder you work, the better you perform, you're going to get a better job, because it's more fulfilling to you, because it fulfills a goal that you have. And that's all that it is. It's not an ego trip. Doesn't make you better than other people. Doesn't put you on a pedestal. That higher status quo is really all in your head. You know, you talk to high-performing, successful people, they don't have an ego trip. I have the creator of Guitar Hero under my care. He doesn't have an ego trip. I've worked with 7-figure earners. They don't have an ego trip. They perform well for the sake of performing well, for the sake of committing to a goal that they have. And that's all that it is. It's not an ego trip to do well, perform well, and succeed. It's a passion. It's just simply a commitment to excellence, because that creates the effect, the result that you want. Nothing more and nothing less. And the secret to overcoming this real need for perfectionism is to acknowledge the people in your life who already include you in their inner circle, who you already know love you and accept you for who you are. And at the same time, acknowledge that there are certain requirements that you must fulfill to accomplish a goal that you have in your mind. And that's all that it is, nothing more. If you're experiencing this and it's driving you mad, I can help you with this. Because often it turns into self-sabotaging behavior. And when you experience this self-sabotaging behavior, you're going to experience failure. And that's real disappointing. If you're tired of this, if you find yourself in this experience, go ahead and contact me. My information will be below this video. We can set up a complimentary discovery session so I can get to know what's challenging you, what your goals are, where you want to be 5 years from now, and we can create a plan together to get you there. Nobody gets there alone. I've got your back. This is Dr. Spencer Coaches. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I sure hope this helps.